sports card fans. Welcome back to another episode of Two Guys, One Hobby with Don and John. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, John. How about yourself?
Good, good. Knowing that when this is going to be posted, it'll be a few days after the event. But did you watch any of the World Series?
I did watch part of it, and I did not watch last night. So I guess there was a big player error at the end. Just people were texting me, but
Unfortunately I didn't watch an inning. I was following it on my phone, doing other things and stuff. Really happy that the Rangers won. I was rooting for them, but I think you were rooting for Arizona.
well, yes and no. Like I didn't have that big of an interest, just George is a fan, so I was kind of pulling for him. But yet Mike's a fan of the Rangers. But it was funny once the Rangers won. We're on this Misfits text chat. A couple guys said, "How long before Mike makes a video?" And of course, it was like an hour later. I was like, "Nailed it! There he is." Which I don't blame him. Hey,
oh sure. Oh, I'd be happy too.
The team has never won a World Series. I'd be doing the same if it was my team. But it was just funny. We're like, "There it is."
Yeah. So we have I think a fun episode for everyone here. We're going to be, I think, talking about set building, set collecting, and team collecting. And so, Don, if you want to introduce our guest.
Yeah, so this guy, I got to know him through Alex's Sunday night chats, and should have way more subs than he does. I think he's got 200 and some, and been trying to get some guys on that aren't on a lot of streams or live chats because I want to give them some exposure and great collections and great guys. And literally when I called him the other day to ask him if he wanted to come on, it was the first time I had talked to him on a live or on a phone, not on a YouTube chat. And I think we talked for an hour, which typically happens no matter who it is.
Yeah.
And so I want to bring on Rick Acosta, Dodger collector fan. I think that's the name of his channel. I might screw that up, Rick. I'm sorry. Dodger card collector. I just call him Rick Acosta. I just call him Rick.
So you collect Giants cards, right?
There was actually an echo there when I heard you guys so far.
I joked and I said, so you collect Giants cards.
I have some Giants cards. I have Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Juan Marshall.
So you're not strictly just Dodgers.
No, I can't. It's funny because whenever someone wants to talk about baseball cards, they always want to talk about the Dodgers. And I'm always like, I have sets and I have Hall of Fame cards too. So I could talk about that stuff. So it's great to be on, though. One of my favorite shows.
I think, thank you. It should be. I think we all do that. I mean, there's obviously teams we don't like, but if you love baseball and the history of it, or basketball or football or whatever it may be, you're going to collect the players of the game, no matter what the team is. Except for maybe Theo, only collects Pirates. I think everyone else has players from every team.
Yeah, I would think you're doing yourself a disservice if I said I don't want to collect Giants or well, I really don't have any Houston Astro players, but if I didn't want to collect Giants players, that's just doing my collection a disservice, just because they have as great as history as the Dodgers do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about why you're a Dodgers fan. Where you come from? Where do you live?
I tell people I'm really old school. And I'm a rarity, I think, because I am born and raised in LA. And I'm one of those fans. I root for the Dodgers. I root for the Rams. I root for the Lakers. I root for the Kings. I have no interest in many other teams. And for some reason, when it came to baseball, a lot of it, honestly, I think has to do with that when my mother bought me a transistor radio when I was 6 years old. And I turned it on, and for some reason, I went straight to a baseball game, and Vince Scully was there. I had Vince Scully telling me baseball stories for 45, 47.
Almost your whole life.
Yeah. So for me, he taught me a lot about baseball, and probably that's one of the reasons he made me a Dodger fan.
Interesting, because normally you would, when you hear someone say, "Oh, why do you root for this team? Well, my dad rooted for that team, or I'm from that area, or I liked a certain player growing up, and I kept with that team or whatever. And for you, it was more of the radio broadcaster got you tied in, and he happened to be the broadcaster for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, he was the one consistent thing with the Dodgers.
Would it be, Rick, because you were born and raised in LA, that's all you got? Because the Angels weren't around back then. I mean, were you kind of forced to listen to him?
No, the Angels were around, and I'm really.
Well, that's true. Yeah, never mind.
The Angels were around, but the thing is, I've always liked baseball announcers. When I went to college, I was the sports director of my college radio station. I did play-by-play baseball, football, basketball. I wanted to be Vince Scully. I wanted to be Vince Scully since I was in the 4th grade. And, I got some offers for minor league baseball. I turned them down just because the money wasn't there. But he influenced me a lot. But, it's really weird to say, but also I liked the Dodgers because they were blue, and blue was my favorite color. And but I do think, kind of like what you said, Don, there wasn't. Yeah, there are other teams around, but the Dodgers were on the radio every night.
It's funny you said you liked it because of blue, and blue is my favorite color as well. And as a kid, I was obviously a Steelers fan, but the Detroit Lions had the greatest blue and silver. And I had a trash can in my room with the Detroit Lions. I didn't really like the Lions, but I thought the colors were great. But it's funny what you said, because John and I both live in Pennsylvania, and my family goes back to the 1800s in Pittsburgh. That's how long we've been here. So it's like you're a Pirates fan. But John, I don't know how much you know about you probably don't, the geography of Pennsylvania. John's kind of like right in the middle of the state. So he could have gone Pittsburgh, or he could have gone Philadelphia. And the guy didn't do either one. I'm not sure what's wrong with this guy.
I am
You're
I'd like to say I'm an enigma.
You're what?
But I'm not. Believe it or not, I'm right on that. Yeah, I'm right on that border, like you said, of we're in the middle of Eagles and Steelers, or Pirates and Phillies fans. I get to some extent the Penguins and the Flyers, but in Central Pennsylvania, not a huge number of hockey fans.
From Baltimore.
Yeah, there's some Orioles fans. I know some Orioles fans, but there are a decent number of Cowboys fans and Mets fans, and I've run in not so many Red Sox fans. Okay, they're my American League team, but in the National League team, it's the Mets. And believe it or not, I've run into several people that root for the Mets and the Cowboys. And I'm like, are we related or something?
Wait a minute, you're a Cowboys fan too?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have relatives in Philly. And so, like,
hey, Rick, I'm looking for
I get razzed on.
You interested?
What was that?
I'm looking for a new host. Cowboys.
I'm still trying to figure out how he likes the Red Sox and Wade Boggs. And
well, that's because of his.
That's because my mom.
I know.
She grew up in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we used to go up there for vacation, and my grandparents go to Fenway Park a few times. And so I've always been surrounded by Red Sox. They weren't huge fans, but they had the games on when we'd go up for the summer or Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, the baseball would be done with. But during the summer, my grandfather would always have the Red Sox on. And like I said, I went to a couple games at Fenway Park. And so the Red Sox have always been a part of my life. The Mets, I just like the early 80s when they started forming that team with Darryl Strawberry, and when they brought Gary Carter and Keith Hernandez, and they started gelling, and then Doc Gooden came on, and 84 and all that stuff. I just started following them because I liked those players, and I liked how the team was constructed. The Cowboys, I was a huge Tony Dorsett fan, and Danny White at quarterback. And so this was grade school, like 78, 79. And
how did they do it?
Through many years of frustration. I still do. A frustration.
You guys weren't frustrated at all.
Oh,
You guys always beat the Cowboys. Always beat the Rams.
yeah.
In my
So
day.
did the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So Rick, so is most of your collection LA Dodgers, or do you have some Brooklyn Dodger cards?
Oh, no. I have. I'll just basically tell you what I've got. For Brooklyn, I've got all from 1948 to 1955. I have all the Bowmans except for the Jackie rookie. Have all the play balls from 39 through 41. Have all the Goudies in the 30s. And then going back up to the 50s, I have the Dodgers all the way through Brooklyn in tops. And then
You have the 52
sorry, except for 52. I skipped 52. So I have 51, then 52 I only have the low numbers, and then I have 53 through present day on tops.
So you have is it Pafco? The number
Yeah, I
one?
have Andy Pafco.
Okay.
If I get a moment, I'll bring it out. But yeah, I have the Pafco card.
Okay.
And then I have the things like Kellogg's and Topps Heritage, the entire collection of that. So there's roughly about, and this fails in comparison when you're talking about like Wade Boggs, there's only several thousand Dodger base cards.
Yeah, because in any given set, even the more modern sets, of course, the rosters are larger, and I think because correct me if I'm wrong, but back in like maybe even going back to the 60s, 50s, and so on, did they make a card of every single player on the roster? Because sometimes they had smaller sets.
No, they'd skip.
Yeah.
I mean, because even if you're looking at the 55 tops or the 54 tops, there's no Roy Campanella. There's no Pee Wee Reese.
Yeah.
Same thing when it comes to Bowman. There's no 53 Bowman Jackie.
I see the 54 Topps Hall of Fame run. There's no Dodger. No, I take that back. There's Jackie.
Yeah.
And Snyder and Hodges.
Okay, never mind.
But you're looking at roughly 25 to 30 cards every year.
Yep.
And to this day, I literally got my 2023 Topps update the other day in the mail. And they're still will put a player who I've never heard of, who I'll never hear of, but somehow he's on a baseball card for some reason.
Yep.
And you go back to the 60s and 70s, same thing.
Okay. So yeah, it isn't. I mean, it's depending on the players and the year and so on. You get to some expense and quantity of players to complete the team set. But yeah, I mean, I'm with my Boggs checklist. I've gone past 10,000 different in my checklist. It's just, yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
I think the Dodgers are roughly, and I'm only talking tops, like what I brought up, roughly 3,500, 4,000, maybe something along those lines.
Yep, and a lot of them, like you said, when they include average players, common players that hey, I never heard of this guy, unless they're like high number series or something, they probably aren't that expensive.
No, but I did, and I'm going to get his name wrong. And if Ray from Philly's watching this or somebody from Philadelphia, I bought a 1966 Topps high number. All I can tell you is the guy on the Phillies is Grant Jackson, who had a pretty good career with the Orioles and the Yankees.
And the Pirates.
The guy on the Dodgers played like 10 or 20 games, and it's a high number, PSA 8. And I had to pay a lot of money for it. And I go, I can't believe I'm spending all this money for this guy who's never done, it's not like I bought a Ron Say card.
Yeah.
I bought some guy who I've never really who didn't do much for the Dodgers.
But it was a high number series in what you said, PSA 8?
Yeah. It was off center. So I got a deal on it.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes back to where we were going to go with this, because you're a set collector, a player collector, and I'm not really a set collector except for the Hall of Famers, except I did a video recently on the 76 tops, and that's just because of my childhood. So, but you collect a lot of the sets, and you just mentioned here you collected a player you didn't really want, but you had to pay a decent buck for it, and that's kind of why I don't collect sets, because I don't want to pay all this money for these guys. But talk a little bit about the sets you have, and does it bother you, or are you just like, I just love having the set?
It's going to be yes to everything, but here's what I'll tell you. I've got my sets currently consist of 1970 tops to 1984 tops, then 1965 tops, 1953 tops, and currently working on a 1963 tops. I'm about 60 away, and I'm working on a night. I'm copying Alex. I'm doing a 1941 play ball set,
Ooh.
all graded.
Okay.
And I'm down to 6 on those.
You're doing the whole set, not just the Dodgers, right?
The whole set.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm down to 6 of those. Now, to get to your point about, when you're buying comments, when you're dealing in the 60s, you're like, God, I'm buying a bunch of guys with no caps on, which I can't stand on a baseball.
I agree with you. 100%.
He has an ugly crew cut. He doesn't play for this team anymore. So you kind of get a little bit like, why am I buying this card? But at the same time, as a team set collector, I do treat it as I want every Dodger card. And this guy plays for the Dodgers. I even bought a 1963 top Stan Williams card. He was traded to the Yankees in the offseason for Moose Scowen, came over to LA. The Williams card still has his Dodger cap on it. I bought it. I go, he's wearing a Dodger cap. So I kept it. But you do get a little annoyed. But I will be honest, at this point with 1941, one of the things I've learned with 1941 is I'm buying cards of guys I've never heard of. But when I look them up in Wikipedia, when I look them up on Baseball Reference, these guys had 10, 15-year careers.
Hey, you're educating yourself.
Yeah, they were batting champions. They were MVPs. They went on to become general managers of the Red Sox and the Dodgers. And you really learn a lot from buying, the common cards.
I was on with a bunch of guys the other night, and we were talking about, I made a video with my puppy on it. It was a minute and 30 seconds, and I got 800 views. And then I did all this, I do all this research on these Negro League players that make the major leagues, and like 80 people watch them. And John Keating's like, but you learned something, right? I'm like, you're right, I did. And that's really what it's kind of about. The puppy thing was just kind of spoof, because I really did want a name for him, but it's ridiculous that it got 800 views. And I spent all this time in research on something that gets 80 views.
I mean, my last video, it was 1963 pickups, and I just put my latest baseball pickups. I got the typical views I always get, around 150 views. I'm always kind of happy with that. I don't have many subscribers. And I remember, but the video I did before, I talked about the 2 1941 play ball pickups, which included the 1940 MVP Buck McCormick and a player by the name of Babe Dahlgren, who took Lou Gehrig's place at first base.
Mm.
And basically, Babe Dahlgren was blackballed by Joe McCarthy. I did all this. I wouldn't say I did a lot of research. I did some research. I found out there's a book. I listened to a couple of podcasts and talked about it on my show. And I had like 60 views. And I go, people don't want to hear about this stuff sometimes. Yeah. So.
You know what? There's 60 people that cared.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that commented.
And it's,
Yeah, that's always good. What I like about and I admit I don't do it as often as I should is, and even with some of the Hall of Famers I pick up, you get cards, and not every set, but a lot of them from the 60s and 50s, even the 70s, on the backs, beyond the stats, they have little snippets. But you even go back to the 40s, like the play balls or the early Bowmans, they have just a little bit of a snippet of the player and like unique. I'll pull that up for you, Don.
Right there.
Just
I have no idea what it says, but classic case of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
I'm about it.
little snippets that, you pick up, like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. And I didn't know about this about the player. And you can do that for like the non-Hall of Famers. Like, well, who's this guy? You flip it over and he went 5 for 5 in one game, or he was a minor league
You can make a great video
all-star, or
off of fun facts off of some cards or something.
yeah,
Just
and
grab the 1973 tops. Mike Torres, who eventually ended up on the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Yeah.
He's on the Expos. Flip over his card. It actually says something along the lines of, Mike went on a diet this offseason. Really? Gosh, sensitivity training here, peeps.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, again, maybe not in-depth history of some of the players, but I think it is somewhat of a lost art of learning about the player. Now it's a lot different for the modern collectors. You get to see them on TV and this and that, and just search them up on the internet. But for a lot of these players that aren't names, you may find something on a Wikipedia site about them. But
What's
I
different
would venture to say,
back then? And it would say, Dale Long worked as was delivering milk in the off season. Today it would be like Mike Trout bought another Lamborghini.
yeah,
You know, it's like, what are you going to write about these guys today in the back, or fun facts, or
yeah.
I mean, back in when I was doing some of my Gaudy videos, I learned guys played college football and played in the Rose Bowl, played in the
a lot of
college,
those guys were great athletes.
and you're like, wow, I never knew this, and this guy played baseball. Today, I don't think I don't collect modern football cards. I don't think it'll say like in the back of Jared Goff's card or the back of Patrick Mahomes' card that they played baseball in college or high school.
Yeah. I think you may even be lucky with some of them. I don't collect really modern cards besides the Topps flagship, or occasionally open some other packs. But when I do, it's just a fancy design on the back and a few stats, and I can't recall ever seeing like some little personal snippet.
Here's the back. I brought this out just because he won the MVP. This is the Corey Seager rookie card, but it's the alternate. The alternate, whatever they call it. It's not.
Oh, image variation.
Yeah, the image variation. Yeah. Thank you. But look at the back. I mean, Don just brought up this one that was all detailed. This has like 5 lines on it.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't say much in these things.
Yeah, and it's usually just stats driven. Like it's nothing about the person themselves. It's, oh, well, so and so hit so many home runs this year, or batted this, or did went so and hit for the cycle last year, or and it's just stats.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, hey, so and so grew up here and did this or whatever, and some of the background. So it is, cards have changed over the years, obviously. I enjoy, as I've been collecting my 78 set, and now, Rick, it sounds like most, if not all, the sets that you've built by hand. Like or have you just like bought a set?
70 through 78 I built by hand. 79 and 80 I bought.
Okay. Rick, your sets full sets, or are they just Dodgers?
Full sets.
Okay.
Full sets.
Is before when you were mentioning Dodgers.
I would say 79 through 82 or 83 I bought. The rest I built, and then obviously sets from the 60s, the 50s, or the 40s are hand.
Yeah. I've cheated in pretty much all of the sets that I have, with the exception of the 78 that I'm working on. I bought, or were given to me as birthday, Christmas presents, or whatever, or I bought, and hey, okay, I bought the set. Hey, I have the set. So I cheated. I know Pepino Man likes to put sets together, and he feels like I forget, there was a time he was, I forget what it was, but he had to, maybe it's just some of the cost of the packs or whatever, and he finally broke down and actually bought the set. And he's like, oh, I wish I could have completed it by hand. So there's something to finding cards, going out, searching for the cards that you're missing, and that completing that project of saying, "Hey, because I'm still missing. I think I'm down to maybe like 120 or 140 cards. I'm like 85% complete my 78 set. Of course, I'm being very particular with my grade and so on. Are you, when you put your sets together, are you more focused on cost, condition, a mixture? Do you mind how they look, or are you just saying, "Hey, I'm missing card number 38 of so and so, and you can find it for a decent price, and you don't care if it has a rounded corner or a crease," or are you looking for fairly nice copies?
Well, I'm not looking for near mint. I am looking for something pretty nice.
Okay.
There are exceptions to be made, just because, like my play ball set, they're basically all 5s and 6s. There's some 4s, but then DiMaggio's like a 1.
Yeah.
Well,
so exceptions have to be made.
I love that card.
I have, so there's that. But when it comes to I hear some guys on YouTube, and everyone has their own way of collecting. But when they just say, "Oh, I just want the card and it's beat up or it's got creases," I don't want that. I do want, because that was me as a kid. Now as a grown up, I want my cards to look nice. And
as a kid, I was the one that put the creases in.
Well, so me too. But like, if you guys came over and you want to look at my binders, I want you to look at them and go, "These are nice. Look at the condition." I don't want you guys to think, "Yeah, he's got all these."
I'm not a fan of beat up cards, except, like I said, I did a video on a set I have, and the only beat up ones are the ones I collected as a kid. But they have meaning because I pulled them out of packs. But I wouldn't buy those cards. No.
I have a 74 Topps Willie McCovey, the Topps National League or San Diego, Washington card, I should say. I bought that as a kid. That's probably one of the only cards left from my original collection. It's probably in G to VG condition. Yeah. That's the card that's in my binder, though, and I go, I don't want to replace it. That is my card.
My collection as a kid.
I had that card. I have that card. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Ed Kirkpatrick.
Remember when we play with them and
But the reason I kept this, Ed lived in my hometown, and his son was in my grade.
Oh wow!
And, Ed would come to our elementary school and bring us all kinds of gifts and stuff. So I got to meet this guy. I mean, look at the back of this sucker.
I mean, that looks like a wallet card. Some people carry a card in their wallet. Yeah.
I mean, literally, I'm not going to do it, but if I went like that, you wouldn't notice a difference.
Speaking of cards in the wallet, that Bob Costas carries a 58 Topps All-Star Mantle in his wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot which card specifically it was, but I seem to recall that he had one. Yeah.
And it's beat up.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, but no, I do look at condition, but there are times when you got to just say, "I want the card," and especially when you're dealing with someone like Mickey Mantle.
I've got a Roy Campanella. It's one. It has so many creases in it, but it's probably the rarest card in my collection. Is a Stallmeyer.
See that? Yeah. Like I have the Bowman, Snyder, and Campanella rookie, and they're both ones. I love them.
Right.
I mean, they're part of my collection.
Yeah, and a lot of people lose. I don't want to say maybe lose sight, but try to maybe emulate others. And look, if you enjoy a card in your collection, I don't care if it's a 1 or a 9. Like if you say, "Hey, this is a 1, and to me this is a beautiful card. It reminds me of this," or blah blah blah, whatever the case may be. And if you look at that card and say, "I just love this card in my collection," that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter that he only has a 1. So be it.
People that think that and collect that way, and that's fine. If that's what you want to collect, so be it. But I think for a majority of us on here, we have a budget and we get what we can get, and we're just thrilled to have it.
Now, one of the things that I would always notice is someone will say, on YouTube, I think it's great. Buy what you like. One of the things I would always add, and you kind of touched upon it, John, is I would also add, don't copy me. Don't, do what you want to do. Don't do what I want to do.
I joke around with some of the misfits. I'm like, I buy what I don't like, and I buy what everyone tells me to get.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, of course I'm gonna buy that.
at the end of the day, I'm going to get stuck with a bunch of Don Mossy cards to be cool.
Don Moss and Wade Boggs, like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rick, it looks like in the background there that you keep all your complete sets in binders.
Yeah. So here's how things work. And I'm very structured and very organized. Every card I own is on an Excel spreadsheet, is on the TCDB trading card database website. So if somebody says get this card, I know where it is. So behind me, you'll see those are all my sets. Then I have, similar to you, John, a library card case off to my left over here. Okay. It's a little bit bigger though than index cards for library, because I can put my cards in. I could lay them down like this.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. I apologize. Take that back. I can put two in a row like this, side by side in a drawer.
Oh, so they are big. Okay, so they're wider. Oh,
yeah, they're wider. So that's where all my Dodger cards will go into. And though every Dodger card is in a penny sleeve and then inside a top loader. And the cards are all I have dividers for every year. So that's where the Dodger cards go. Binders are in sets. Hall of Fame cards are either on display walls, and I think I have roughly like 7 or 8 of those, the Bizzani cases.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the cards that aren't good enough to make it on the wall are in a regular like briefcase type function. And that's
so how do you? Yeah. So how do you, with the sets that you have in binders? Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's, especially for some of the older sets, some of the Hall of Famers and more expensive cards. Do you have ungraded copies, or if they're graded, are they separated somewhere else, or how do you handle the more expensive cards within the sets?
So I'll start with the 70s. If you're dealing with something like 75, well, let's say the 76 to modern or to 80, whatever, all ungraded. 75, I have the Brett and the Yount,
okay,
graded. So what I do for those is the graded cards go on the display wall. What I do is I photocopy. Here, I got this card for Don. So what I would do is I'll photocopy this, pretend I have a 53 Bowman set, a Stam Usual. I'll photocopy this whole thing. Then once I color or get the color print, I cut off this part.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the back.
All right.
And then it goes into the binder. The photocopy goes in the binder.
Okay, so it's not just a placeholder, but because it's graded, you have what that grade is when you flip it over in the on the binder sheet.
Just in case something happens to me, that way my family knows. Oh, he has a graded card somewhere. We have to find it if we're going to sell this.
And here's the grade and the serial number on it.
Yeah, so that's what I do for those. So when it gets to like the 60s and the 50s, it gets to a point where 95% of the set, no, I wouldn't even say that. 97% of the set is raw, and maybe 1, 2, 3%, the Mantles, the Clementes, the Aarons, those are all graded.
Yeah. Is there how do you decide? Because again, we had a great discussion with Jake Legends Never Die on the matter of graded versus ungraded, and with the sets that he's building and so forth. Do you have a cutoff, so to speak, where it's either a player or a value of a card where you decide, hey, I want either to get this copy graded or buy a graded copy for the set? And if it's maybe a different player or price point, or or is it just sort of a random, hey, I just want to get this one just for whatever reason?
I try to make it a player. So, it's always like those guys I mentioned. But when I built the 57 set, I was having a hard time finding a Bobby Richardson card. And every time I kept losing on ungraded cards. And one day I bid like on a PSA 4, PSA 5, and I won it for a lot cheaper than I anticipated. So I have the Bobby Richardson graded.
Okay.
And if somebody asks, why do you have that graded? Well, because that was the cheapest way for me to get it.
Yeah. For me, I mentioned again in the last episode, 99% of my Boggs cards are ungraded. And
Right.
some of the few ones that are, the seller that I bought it on eBay graded it before they listed it. And it's, out of 5 or something. So I'm like, oh, I can't say I'm going to pass on that one because it's graded. I want an ungraded copy. I may not find another one. So
Yeah.
I have a few that are graded. And that's the only reason why I never submitted any to be graded. I am trying to do a little bit of a Topps playing day run that's graded, but that's just a separate project. My main collection, vast majority is ungraded.
Okay, so Rick, I ask
Yeah.
you, because you said you collect a lot of base sets, and for Braves fans and Dodgers fans, there are a lot of sets out there. Like even today, James Lead Hunter said, "Have you ever seen this?" And it was a '63 stand-up, or not stand-up, pin-up of San Diego.
That's amazing.
What other players are there? And they were all Dodgers.
Mhm.
I guess that's a Dodgers set. And there's tons of them. Like for Braves and Dodger fans, you got tons of sets you can collect. Do you dwell into those as well?
That's where I kind of have to draw a limit. When I first started this, the original plan was just to do Topps.
Uh-huh.
But then, once I started accumulating, I started collecting. Oh, let's add, the 60 Leaf and the 63 Fleer.
The only way to get Murray Wills rookie, right?
Yeah, with the Maury Wills rookie. Now, you talked about that one set that you just saw, but like there's these other cards that I've been picking up lately called Morel Meats.
Oh, those are nice.
Those are fantastic.
I don't think I've ever seen
Will I
that.
buy? I will buy them if I find them, but it's not a point. I won't make a point. I'm not going to start a team set. No, but if I find them, I'll buy them.
Do you have some of those near you to show?
Yes. Here, give me a second here.
Oh, that was a nice shot.
What? Is that up on TV?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But you need to edit that part.
Yeah.
Here we go. I won, or I didn't win these. I bought these at a card show in Temecula, California. So now here's where I don't delve too much on condition. But there's Drysdale.
Don't tell
Hodges.
Gil Hodges.
And then I'm going to show this one because Dan, the vintage collector, brought this up.
Duke
What's
Snyder,
wrong,
right
what's
hand.
wrong with the Snyder card?
Wait a minute. He's batting right-handed.
Yeah. This isn't it reverse. Snyder's batting right-handed.
Right. Yeah, because the 4 is correct.
Uh-huh. He pulled a fast one on us.
I was watching part of the Yogi Berra documentary, and I'm only like 15 minutes into it. But they were showing him as a kid batting. And he was batting right-handed as a kid. I was like, huh. He's a left-handed batter.
Yeah. But I don't delve deep into the regional stuff because the Dodgers have Bell Brand. They have Morel Meats. I haven't even gone into Bazooka or Post cereal. I did do Kellogg's, but I can't buy every card. It's because I'll go broke.
Yeah.
And crazy at the same time.
Well, what's the it's escaping me now. There's an early Jackie Robinson.
Oh, Bond Bread.
Yeah, the what?
The Bond Bread card?
Bond Bread, yeah. Yeah. Now, do you know of any other Dodgers in that set?
No, I don't. And
okay.
I see exhibits cards like everyone else does. I see those, but the Dodgers have these cards also called Golden Stamps from 1955.
I've seen those.
The only reason I bought those was because some guy on Facebook had like 16 graded cards. No, yeah, like 16 to 20 graded cards and 10 to 15 ungraded cards, and he sold them to me for $100.
Oh wow!
So I got the Lasorda, I got the Koufax, I got 2 Snyders, Campy, Jackie, and I'd show them to you, but then I have to get up, and I don't want to do that angle again.
I got to show you mine that I got up for. My
Yeah, I
dog.
like that one. I've seen that.
Yeah, that's the image that they used for his 52 Bowman, 51,
Yes, 51.
51 Bowman.
52, he's
Yeah,
bad.
I love up here how it's got the CBS and the radio stations, and
That's a great card.
this card shows up way better on here than it is. There's all kinds of creases, but this is a case where, you know, you buy what you can get and afford. These aren't everywhere, so if they have some creases, so what? You know, or like look at this, this corner up here. It's I got the card.
And
but
see, this
now
is
don't those cards have their corners cut off or not?
Well, they are supposed to be rounded, but
Okay.
But they're like it's folded over.
Okay. All right.
And this is one of the things though I like about collecting, because Don, I've seen Don show that card a couple of times, and he's really proud of it. And I respect that so much that it's like if I respect it so much that I would never ask him, hey man, if you ever want to sell that, call me. No, because I know he loves that card. But if he went up there and
I probably either call you or Jesse, Think Blue 77, because I know how much you guys would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dodger fan, and I'd be like, okay, I don't want to sell, but I have to, situation-wise. And I'd be thrilled that it's in your collection and not on eBay to some random person that I have no idea who it is. And maybe in the future, Jesse or Rick will show it on a video and I get to see it again. And they would say, hey, this is my collection, but it used to be in Don's. And I'd be cool with that. Honestly would.
Well, didn't you, Don, yeah, maybe it wasn't you. Who did you buy your 50 Bowman Robinson from? Was it from another collector?
No, that was eBay.
Okay.
Tell me what the bid on it. But no, I didn't buy it off of.
Yeah, well, but I know. I mean, you hear it occasionally that, oh, hey, I did a trade, or I bought this from someone. I know George, I think, has sold Diamond Air Sports Cards has sold a couple different cards, right, to other YouTubers.
International.
I was about to show. This is the last card I needed for the 57 set, and George helped me out with it. We were both at the same card show, and Ashish J was at this show.
Okay.
And he had this card, but not on him. He had it at the Houston show. And I said, I'll take it, because the Burbank show was the next week and he was going to sell it. We were going to finish the transaction there. But George helped me out with it. I went up to him. I go, George, I need your help. And he looked at it and he gave me the positive, the negative. But, George was also kind of like, if you like the card and you need it, get it.
Yeah. Right. Don did the same thing with me with my 48 Bowman Satchel Paige. We were at the Pittsburgh Card Show, and I was looking at that and a 64 Aaron.
It was
and I was like, and I was like, well, what's your opinion? He goes, I don't want to tell you what my opinion is, but I have one, and I hemmed and hawed and came back, and that spawn was just stuck with me. And he goes, yeah, that's what after I bought it. He goes,
the card. We went to lunch.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, I don't want to tell you my opinion. I don't want to influence you. And you're like, no, I want your opinion. And then we went back after lunch and you purchased it.
Yeah. And it was still there. And so I'm really glad, really glad I got that. Well, let's, I know we have a few minutes left here, but let's just pause for a second. I do have a trivia question.
Oh boy. All right.
It is from the 50s. So we've been talking a lot about that Duke Snyder and Jackie and all that stuff. So it fits that we're doing a 50s trivia question here. I don't know how difficult this may be, but we'll see. Which Hall of Fame pitcher lost 22 games in a season during the 1950s? A 22-game loser. In the
too bad Wilbur Wood isn't the Hall of Famer, because I think he lost 21 or 20 in the 70s. In the 50s.
He's a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Hall of Fame pitcher. Yep.
I don't have.
I've seen this somewhere.
And he had a pretty good season before that, and a fairly good season after that. So it wasn't like, well, obviously he's a Hall of Famer. So it was just 1 year that.
I don't know if I can ask this question. Is he a 300 game winner?
No, I don't think so.
I think I know the answer to this.
Okay, then it wasn't who I thought it was. Let's see. Did he start his career in the 50s?
Ooh. No, wait a minute.
I'm looking at my
No.
Okay.
I could be confusing him with a different player, though. It's let's just say it's close.
It's not him.
No.
He wasn't that good in the 50s. That's why.
Yeah.
What about Bob Lemon?
That's not right. I think it'd be a good guess because Bob Lemon would be one of those that I don't think a lot of people know of his career stats, and he could have had just some off year, but it's not Bob Lemon.
Early win?
That was my first guess.
Nope.
Early 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought the 300 game winner.
Are you ready for the answer?
Yeah.
No idea.
Robin Roberts.
Really? What year?
1957. So Roberts was in his 10th season. So he did, I should have read it, he did start before the 50s. Robert was in his 10th season with the Phillies in 1957. After leading the league in wins 4 consecutive seasons from 1952 to 1955, he won 19 games in 1956. But then the bottom fell out with a 10-22 record in 1957. He did turn it around and go 17-14 the following season. After 286 wins in 19 seasons, Roberts hung up his glove in 1966 and was inducted into the Hall in 1976. So not a 300-game winner. Started his career before the 1950s.
That's
Robin
crazy.
Roberts.
All right, I'm going to throw a softball at you guys. This one should be pretty easy.
Those scare me more.
So since you're a Dodger fan, we'll go with a guy that was in the Dodgers farm system with Montreal, and he made the Hall of Fame, but not as a Dodger.
Roberto Clemente.
Yeah, I told you.
Montreal. Yeah.
Now,
wait a minute. Ask the question again.
Name a player that was in the Dodgers minor league system.
Okay.
Was in Montreal, and he made the Hall of Fame, but not as a Dodger.
Dodgers minor league system. Okay, when I'm thinking Montreal, because the first thing came to mind obviously wasn't from the 50s, and I don't think he's not a. No, I'm thinking Vlad Guerrero. That
you're thinking the Expos.
Yeah, he started with the Expos, but then he go to the.
He
wasn't with the Dodgers.
The Dodgers minor league system was in Montreal.
Yeah, they were the Royals.
Yeah.
And I usually try to defend the Dodgers for hiding Clemente because they couldn't keep Koufax and Clemente on that bonus that Major League Baseball. They couldn't keep 2 guys. They could, but the Dodgers were going to give up 2 roster players to sit on the bench for 2 years.
They should have.
Hide Clemente. Didn't work, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. All right. So when you maybe tell us a little bit more about how you got into sets and the team sets? When did you start collecting, and maybe when did you become more of a serious collector where you said, "Hey, I want to start collecting Dodgers cards and complete sets"? So maybe a little bit of the history of your collecting.
Sure. I started collecting when I was 8 years old. That was 1973. Not lying. My mother gave me like a quarter one day, and I bought 2 packs of baseball cards. And I remember that day buying 5 packs of baseball cards eventually. And that's where I started That's where the addiction started. I could see the issue started. But I bought cards from 1973 through 1980. I actually worked at a baseball card store when I was 14.
Did you really?
Yeah, I worked at one of the first local card shops in my area, and we were paid to sort cards from, this was in the summer, from noon to 5. We sorted cards, and if somebody walked in, we'd sell cards. We got paid $9 a day, which it was under the table, and we weren't old enough to work yet. We were 14.
Baseball packs you bought back then for $9.
Yeah, so we would get good stuff out of that, and eventually the guy who owned the store started the first, card shows in the area. And one little trivial fact that I didn't know until I started watching YouTube was that I went to the very first national, and I did not know that until I started watching YouTube a few years
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
What year was that?
what was that?
What year was that?
He was 79.
That was in Anaheim, wasn't it?
It was in LAX at the Marriott Hotel.
Oh, okay.
And we just, back then, the shows were called conventions. So we went, and it was this big hotel room, which if you walked into today for the National, I'm sure you'd be extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
But back then we were super excited, and we went up. Back then I was also into quantity as opposed to quality. We were just trying to get, it was cool to say, I have 3,000 cards. I have 4,000 cards. Well, I mean, so after a while, somewhere, girls, I wanted to buy a car, all that stuff got in the way. I always was in and out of the hobby. I was listening to Mike Moynihan the other day with John Keating, and they were talking about biggest regrets. And it was interesting to hear the regrets, where I don't have many regrets, because I've also been fortunate enough where when eBay came out, like in the mid 90s, for some reason, I was there right when eBay came out, and I would just start doing searches. 1959 Topps Dodgers, 1963 Topps Dodgers, 1967 Topps Dodgers lots. All of a sudden, I had all these cards from the 50s and the 60s. Then I went away again. Somewhere around 10 years ago, though, I was watching some guy. I still had my cards, but they were disorganized. I saw this guy. I don't know if he was on Facebook or on wherever, but he was called like the Ultimate Team Collector. And what he was doing, he was selling every team from 1976 to present day Topps. Excellent to mint, in penny sleeves, in card holders, top loaders, I should say, excuse me. And he wanted a certain price, and I couldn't afford it, but it gave me the inspiration of, I'm going to buy all the Topps cards like this guy had. So once I did 76 to 2016, started going backwards. And that was about 10 years ago. But at that point, when I started getting into that, I started going, I want to work on the cards I had as a kid, which was 73 to 80. So I started building those. Then I remembered when I was 8, 9, 12, 13 years old, we would talk about the 1971, the 1972 sets, because the high numbers were famous for us. So I go, I need to build that set. So I built that, and that just started me building sets. And when I started watching YouTube, I started liking you guys with your Hall of Fame cards, started buying them. I've recently started buying football cards. TJ Maxx, Terry has this incredible 1950s Bowman card. I started buying those. So I do see that one day I won't buy as much, like in the next year or two, but for now I enjoy putting sets together, and it's like I enjoy buying the set, working on a set, as opposed to buying a set one at a time, just because it's a conquest and you learn players, and it's just a nice mission to have.
Where do you find I think one of the sets you said you're down to missing like 60 or so. Do you try to go to local card shows to pick them up? Do you primarily get them on eBay? Do you buy individual cards that you missed? Do you buy lots and then find the better cards from those lots to put in your sets?
I usually start with I buy a starter lot. In the case of 1963, it was about 250 cards. And literally when those lots showed up, I had back-to-back the Burbank show and the Long Beach show, 2 consecutive weeks. So I picked up about 100 cards there. I already was sitting on my Dodger team set and like 25 additional cards. So then from there, I had a nice big chunk. And then from there, I usually start going to Greg Morris.
Okay.
And then the batter's box out of Texas. I'll go to their store when they have 15% sales. Just did a deal with them the other day. And from there, once I get down to like 60, 70 cards, it's like, all right, start paying attention at card shows. You're going to have to buy that mantle. You're going to have to buy that maze. You got to, I'm literally about to enter that phase with this set.
Okay.
I have two questions for you. And the first one being, we spoke the other day and you told me you had a brother that used to live here in Pittsburgh and you got to see the Clementi Museum, you got to see PNC Park, and you saw the Mazeroski Wall. So you're trying to do a tour of all the stadiums.
Right.
You told me you have 12 to 15 that you've hit. They're still around. You had 5 or 6 others that no longer exist.
Mm-hmm.
What's next on your list? Where are you going this summer?
All right. I've been to 16 current ballparks and then 5 or 6 that don't exist, so I don't count them anymore. Like the old Yankee Stadium or Candlestick Park, I don't count them anymore. They're just in the retired list. Like when the A's move, I'm gonna go down from 16 to 15. Right. So the next version, what I plan to do in April of this year is I'm going up to Toronto. The Dodgers are playing a weekend series in Toronto. And if I play my cards right that week, I'm also a big hockey fan. The NHL will be starting the playoffs that week. And I'm hoping to do a bucket list item, which would be to attend a Toronto Maple Leafs playoff game.
Mm.
So those will be going. Hopefully those will be happening the same week.
Okay. So my second question, I know you've already seen Cleveland Stadium, but are you going to the National?
Not this year.
Why?
But whose video? Why? Okay. What? I'll start with that first. Why? Because if I go to Toronto, I really can't afford to go to the National.
That's a good reason. I get it.
But I was watching yesterday, Chris from Missouri.
Yes.
And he brought up dates for. I need to rewind it and watch the video. I think he gave dates for the Strongville show.
April 19th to 21st.
Okay. I need to double check my dates because I might consider the Toronto trip is somewhere around that time where maybe I would do a detour to Cleveland for a day.
And hooked up with Mike Canadian Cards. He lives in the suburbs. And if you do hit Toronto, you should hit him up.
Does he live there?
Strongsville. He lives in the suburbs of Toronto.
Okay. And I went to Toronto in 2016, loved it, want to go back.
That's one thing I can't push more, and I've met John in person. I've met so many people outside of nationals and card shows. You know, my daughter goes to school in South Carolina, so I hit Drew up. We were looking at schools down in I'm going blank on it. Charleston, South Carolina. Man, Jamie lives down there. And then we went down to Savannah, and Alex lives there. And I just call these guys up and say, I'm in town. My wife stays in the hotel. I go and have breakfast or get the bathroom. Like, if you're ever in these cities, I'm telling you, look up these people. It's you know, you just don't have to meet them at shows. It's one-on-one. You know, typically it's only an hour. You get to meet with these guys. But if you're there, it's like, it's so cool.
I'll have to do that. I did think about you a couple of weeks ago because the Steelers were in town.
Okay.
And I have Ram season seats, and I couldn't sell my seats. And I was like going, I wonder if Don is thinking of coming to LA, or does he have friends come? But then I ended up selling the seats.
Right.
But whenever a team comes to town and I can't find someone to go with, I'm always like, do they want to come?
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to take you up though. I'll have to meet when I'm in towns. I definitely will call you guys and say, I'm in town. Let's meet up.
I'm hoping, and I have a feeling that because I haven't been to Strongsville before, and I am planning on going next year. I can see, at least in terms of like YouTubers, there's I think enough of us on sort of like the East Coast or in Canada that it can be sort of like a second little YouTube gathering.
It is. I've been to Strongsville twice. It's only a 2-hour drive for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the National.
Yeah.
So it's a small hotel. and it's a piece of crap hotel. Like the work last time, you'd push floor 3 and you'd end up on floor 5, and
Yeah.
but it is all vintage, and you know, you don't need 5 days to see everything, but it's all what we like for us vintage guys. And there was probably 5 or 6 of us YouTubers there last year, so the more the merrier. It's kind of even nicer that you're gonna run into them. You just can't help it because it's just not that big. So what I'm saying, I'm not trying to talk it down because it is great, but I just don't want people to be the mindset that it's a mini national, because it's really not. It's what you said before, Rick. It's quality versus quantity.
Yeah. I mean, like they've recently started the Burbank shows here. They're not the national, even though I haven't been to a national in a long time. They're not the national, but they're still good shows. And I would tell people, if you're in town, come out. I mean, Mike Moynihan's been, George was selling at the last one.
Right.
You know, geez, Mikey was out there. Pepino Man, I met him out there, and some other YouTubers I've met out there. But we don't have great shows, and it seems like all the cool collectors are out on the East Coast. Now all my West Coast friends are gonna unsub me. But
I go back to, and I get ripped on for this because I get sappy with it, but it's not about the cards. You get there, and that's why you got to hit a national now that you're on YouTube.
mm-hmm.
And I get it. Money's always an issue for us. I couldn't go last year because of it. And I was bummed watching everyone's videos. Like, I didn't miss the cards one bit. Like, people show the cards and I missed that. But then you guys went to the YouTube night, and there was a lot of people I hadn't met that are new in this last year, and I was like, this sucks, and I'm not there right now. And that's, if you can do it, or even if you can get down to Strongsville and meet 10 of us.
Yeah, the Strongville one really, I'm really liking that show. What I always get nervous about, let me ask you guys this, is I like John. John, I watched your last 2 national videos, and I'm always like, I'm aligned with him because I could tell you come with a budget, and this is what I'm going to buy. There's no going around that. Where some people say I'm on this budget and they show up with $12,000 worth of cards.
Yeah.
But I also am afraid of, I don't want to go to the national and come home completely empty-handed.
You'd still have a great time, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every card that I bought at this year's national, I could have bought on eBay. It's not. I didn't find a card that was so rare that, oh my gosh, because it was only showing up at the national and I can't find it anywhere else. I was just buying regular vintage cards. It wasn't about those cards, buying those specific cards. Did I enjoy getting them? Yeah. And I'll always remember that, hey, I got this 54 Bowman Ted Williams at the 2023 National. I'll always remember that.
Okay.
But that's not why I went. I didn't go to pick up that particular card. It was one that, hey, if things work out, fine. I went out there to hang out with fellow YouTubers.
This before. I wasn't on YouTube. I'm not flying to Chicago or driving 6 hours to Atlantic City by myself to look at cards. I wouldn't do it.
No?
I'd rather spend the weekend with my wife or something.
Oh, I hear you.
I'm telling you, man, we had that bed and breakfast, or not bed and breakfast, Airbnb, and we're going to do it again this year. And
who had the nasty Airbnb? Who had the nasty Airbnb in Atlantic City?
Oh, that was Mike Moynihan. We had a pretty nice one. It was disgusting.
It was that bad?
From what I heard, I didn't see. I saw it from the outside because Jake was one of the people that rode out with me, and he wasn't staying with us, and we dropped him off there, and I was like, "Oh my god, look at this place!" It was just from the outside. I didn't see the inside.
No, I'll definitely think about the national. Definitely.
Yeah, at some point, whether it's, I'm not saying it's going to be this year, but if you want to meet the YouTube community and get a really good feel for it, and what I've found, and I know John will agree with this, most people will, what you see is what you get. Like, if you see a channel and you think the guy's an asshole and you don't like him, he probably is, and you don't watch that channel. But if you see someone that you like, or all those people that are on the chat on Alex's channel or John here, I've met quite a few of those people, and they're as great as they are on YouTube. They really are.
All right. I'm going to think about it. Definitely. It's in Cleveland this year,
Open
right?
Cards are the money. If you go there with zero budget for cards, I'm not saying you might be like a little bummed you didn't get a card, but you're going to have a good time.
All right. Good to know. Definitely will keep that on my, and you never know, if my Toronto trip falls through, then I probably will go to the National.
Even if it's not this year,
Yeah.
next year, you know.
They need one closer to town, my town.
Yeah, they have
That
airplanes.
ain't happening.
They have airplanes, Rick.
I know. No, they need one in Pittsburgh. I liked Pittsburgh.
That Pittsburgh show was a nice. That was a nice. Again, was Strongville about the size of the Pittsburgh show?
Yeah, but like you don't have all the. I don't want to say remember. Well, first of all, the signing room is not there. It's not as big, like the autographs.
Yeah.
And you don't have like you have vintage memorabilia, but like you remember when you walk in, they got all those photos and everything they're trying to sell. You don't have any of that. And there's modern at the Pittsburgh show.
Right. Yes, but I'm talking about the size of the venue.
Yeah. It's about that.
And I thought that was nice. I mean,
I thought that was national in Pittsburgh. It'd have to be downtown. We have a convention center, which is in walking distance of PNC Park.
Ooh, I like that.
Which is also in walking distance. It's a little bit of a walk, but to the Clemente Museum. You know, there's hotels, there's restaurants. You wouldn't have to drive all over the place. We have a T system down there that if you're in this downtown part of Pittsburgh, it's free, which you can hop on that T. When I say T, it's that's short for the train system we have.
Right.
And it's not like New York. It's
I saw it.
Much louder. Yeah. You can literally take that T right over to what we call the North Shore, which is where the stadiums are. The Andy Warhol Museum's there. Tons of restaurants.
That's where my brother lived.
Yeah.
Can you believe the first thing we did? Because I'm a planner when I go on these trips. My plane landed in Pittsburgh, let's say at 1 o'clock. My brother and I had reservations at the Clemente Museum at 3 o'clock. So when my brother picked me up, he goes, "Do you want to get lunch?" And I'm an LA guy. 1 to 3, that's kind of like, do we have time to go to lunch and make it to the Clemente Museum? Yeah. And he said, "Oh my God, absolutely." And we went to Clemente Brothers. Is that what?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
The most overrated food in the world, but it's.
We went there. And then I go, why are there French fries in my sandwich? Yeah. And then we went to the Clemente Museum, and that was phenomenal. That was like one of the highlights.
I went there last fall, and I was almost ashamed to say that I waited that long. And you could go there 10 times, and you see it, but you don't have time to look at it and soak it in. And like,
I live in LA by the Grammy Museum, and I still haven't been.
Yeah.
And I'm a big music fan, so. Right. Those are the things that happen when you live
in Cleveland. You get the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there too.
I went to that. That was fun.
Okay.
That was fun. Went to that in an Indians game, and they were the Indians back then. Went to an Indians game. That was nice.
Yeah, it's a nice stadium.
Pittsburgh was nicer, the stadium.
Oh, no doubt.
That and San Diego are my top 2.
All right. Well, we're way off topic here.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, thank you for being on as our guest. I love learning about different ways that people collect, and even with you being a set builder and a team collector, you have your own little twist on things, which is nice. Everyone's unique in the way they collect and what they enjoy, and it's always great learning about how other people collect in their collections.
And I do feel that set collecting is a dying art. Kind of like what Don says, why am I buying all these commons? I do think it's a dying art, but I still enjoy doing it. Will I get every set? No, that's not the plan. I'm going to do a few more sets, and then at that point, focus on something different.
Now, Rick, I'm so glad you joined us. John, I hope you put a link on this to his channel.
Oh, yes, definitely. Absolutely. Definitely go check Rick's channel out.
Yeah, way more subs he does. And guys, if you like what we do and in the community, Rick is right there. He's got great cards, great guy, passion for the hobby. And that's why I wanted to get him on here, give him some exposure. And be honest, get to know you a little better the last couple of days, which I have. So that's
that was nice. Did you get the $3,000 check I sent you, by the way, Don?
I thought it was 5.
5. Shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get you 2K next week,
We're
bud.
like Greg Morris now. We have a $5,000 minimum to be on this
All
show.
right.
Yeah.
All right, John, you want to end it here? And
Yep. Thanks again, Rick, for being on, and for those who have
Right.
followed here for an hour and 10 minutes. We always appreciate it. It'll be my turn to pick the next guest. I have someone in mind that may have a different take on collecting styles. I have to reach out to him to see if he's available or willing to do that. We'll see. With that, hey, as always, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
thanks, guys. Thanks, Rick. John.
Thank you.